Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Content Warfare TV. We took a couple weeks off, a lot of transitions, a lot of things happening in life, but I got to tell you, I missed coming on here and doing this thing and having some great conversations. I'm actually really excited about today's guest, Carol Lynn Rivera, the co-founder of Web.Search.Social, and you may know her husband, one of the most provocative guests we've ever had on this show, Ralph Rivera, who came on and just dropped bombs all over the place and got us some hate comments. So, Carolyn, hopefully we're not going to have as much trouble as we did with your husband, but I'm so happy to have you.
Well, it's great to be here. I know he's a tough act to follow, so we'll see what we can do.
No, I have every belief that you are going to blow him out of the water. So let's get kind of right into, and we'll kind of talk more about what Web.Search.Social does as the show goes on, but I want to kind of get right into today's topic, and that's this idea of corporate blogging, and in particular, and as the title of the show kind of says, moving your corporate blog from something that is kind of boring, and look, most corporate blogs are extremely boring and terrible and awful, and we're going to kind of ferret out through our conversation today how you go from having that boring blog to something that people actually want to read, that drives revenue and traffic and all that good stuff. But I want to, let's start with, like, what is the first thing when you go to a corporate blog or you have a client that comes to Web.Search.Social and sits down with you and says, I want this thing to be better, right? Like, most of them don't even know what they really want it to do. Like, what is the first thing that you see that, like, stands right out to you as something that corporate blogs are doing wrong?
They are not talking to the people they need to be talking to. Most times their corporate blogs are very top-down. So there's a guy in management somewhere, and he's got his talking points, and those are the people who are writing the blog are writing them to make that manager happy. But what they're missing is talking to the prospects and customers that they should be talking to. So that's the biggest fail point, and that's the first thing that I always ask people, which is, who are you talking to? What do they want to know? And that's a big sticking point, believe it or not, because a lot of people don't think from the trenches, so to speak, and they're really thinking from a corporate level, not from a customer level. So that's always where we start.
Okay, so I like that. So I would completely agree that it feels like most blogs are written for not me, right? Like, I go to a blog and I'm trying to figure out something about the company or something about their product does, and they're not writing to me, they're writing about what they think they should be writing about. So when you ask them that question, who is it that you actually would like to attract, what are some ways that you get out of them who that person actually is? Because I think that is a tough question for a lot of companies.
Well, we try to get them to focus on who an actual real customer would be. And in fact, that's one of the tricks that we use, and I don't like to use the word trick, but I'll use it anyway. When we want to target people on our blog, we will sometimes write a blog for one specific person. We'll have a conversation with a prospect, and that prospect will say, I'm really frustrated with my email campaigns, they're not working. That's a blog post right there. We write that blog post like we're talking to that prospect. So it's almost like a sales pitch in a blog post. Your email campaigns are not working because of A, B, and C. So when we talk to other companies and we try to get them to focus on their blog, we ask them, who is your best customer right now? What is that customer's problems? What are their questions? What do they need to know? Or who are you pitching right now? Who's a really hot prospect, but what's keeping them from working with you? What are their concerns? Are they worried about the price? Are they worried about the process? Or they're worried about maybe you just don't know what you're talking about? So I want them to think of very real people, and I want them to think of how they would speak to those people and what those people would ask them, and then how they would answer.
So I love that, and I 100% agree. It seems to me the feeling that I get is that a lot of corporations and a lot of business blogs, company blogs, that kind of stuff, we're using the word corporate just for purposes of the conversation to delineate. It seems like they're scared to dive deep. Why do you think that is? It's like, because that makes complete sense to me, right? Pick one client, one particular person, and for this day, this post, we're going to write for that one person. And then tomorrow, we're going to write for a whole another person. I mean, that seems to make it seems like almost a very basic concept. Yet, for so many companies, it's every post, every time has to be for everyone. Why do you think that they struggle with diving deep like that?
I think in that case, it's probably just a mindset. I think that they just don't think of it that way. They think that they have to, most people have that problem, whether it's blogging or just any kind of marketing. Their emails, their messaging in general, they just want to cast this wide net because, they want as much business as possible. But you can cast a wide net, get a whole bunch of fish that are really not edible, or you can cast a really narrow one and go for that really gorgeous lobster, So I think in that case, it's just a mindset. But to another point that you brought up too about what's their kind of mental block about digging deep, I think that a lot of times people are afraid that they're going to give something away. They're going to give away some trade secret or some secret sauce, or they don't want to tackle those tough questions because it might make them look bad. So I think there's kind of two forks we can take that in. The one is you just have to think differently about blogging, and then the other is you kind of have to be fearless about it.
Yeah, the fearless part is incredibly tough for companies, and I know in the industry that is my specialty, the insurance industry, it is something that comes up in every conversation, every talk, every interview that I give inside the industry, this whole idea of, it's like, God forbid I say the wrong thing, someone's going to sue me. And I get that at a certain point, like you can't say, you can't be derogatory towards other companies or something like that because, yeah, there are some legal ramifications to that kind of stuff. So, but you have to have an opinion. You have to dive into these things and at least share some sort of knowledge. So what are some good, I don't want to say tactics, but just things for people to keep in mind when they make that dive on how maybe not to cross the line, but to have a personality and have an opinion in their corporate blog?
Well, I think it's important first to define who you want to be. And this is something that we did too, because we debated back and forth for a long time. Do we want to swear? Do we not want to swear? And that's just a small example, but it's something that comes up because in the course of everyday speech, you may swear. If that's your personality, then and that's how you approach your business, your life, your prospecting, then that should come across in your blog. Trying to take a colorful, boisterous personality and put it into corporate language, that's where you kind of go off the rails. And I think I went on a tangent. You got to route me back to that question.
There's I didn't say this to you at the beginning of the show. There's literally only one rule on the Content Warfare show, and that is if you go off on a tangent, you have to keep going off on it because we want to capture that value. No, that was perfect. So
to the tangents point, whether that was your question or not, knowing who you want to be is important. And we have people. I'll tell you one quick story. My dad, he reads every blog post we write, every single one. And if there's a typo, he'll comment on it and he'll let me know. And if I, swear or if I say a word he doesn't like, he will send me an email and he will let me know. But we've decided that that's our personality. That's how we approach life and business and who we want to be. And if somebody doesn't like the fact, you might have noticed Ralph wrote a post the other day that had the word, and I won't say it on air, but a-holes in the title. And we debated that right and left. Should we say that? Should we not say that? And we decided it's okay if we say that because anybody who's offended by that is not really the kind of person that we're going to have the right kind of relationship with. So if we have to censor ourselves on a blog only to censor ourselves in real life with a prospect or a client, that's not a good business relationship. And again, that's a small example. So if you're not the kind of person who does it, then don't do it on your blog. Just don't try to be something you're not.
I think that is such a good point, and I really want to stay on this. Who do you want to be? But first, I have to. My mom reads all my stuff as well, even though she could literally care less about marketing or anything that I write. She doesn't have any interest in it at all. Yeah, she reads every single one, and anytime I use a curse word, I get an email. You didn't have to use that word. That's literally, it'll be this. It's almost like she has the email like set up already, and she just forwards it to me when I put something
that's exactly my dad. They should meet one day.
Compare notes on how to chastise children for swearing in their blog posts. So I think that the point that you're making is a good one for corporate blogs because what happens is a disconnect between what the person gets when they actually end up doing business with them, and the personality that's in the digital space.
Right.
And understanding who you want to be is so important. What are some other things that go on corporate blogs that create that same kind of disconnect between the experience you get when you actually end up doing business with someone and that blog?
I also think that on a blog it's important to be just as conversational as you would in real life. Many of us had very good English teachers growing up, and we got the grammar lessons pounded into us, and we got the double spaces after the periods pounded into us, and we can write a really damn good term paper. But that's not blogging. Blogging is another animal entirely. So it's something that you want to not think of in terms of writing well. And I know that that may sound a little weird, but if you read our blog posts, they are spell-checked, not that we don't occasionally miss something, and they're well formatted. But we use slang, we use improper grammar if it makes the point better, but we do those things deliberately, and we do it because we're having a conversation with somebody. We're not just giving them, here's the latest news, droning on and on and on, about something that may be interesting, but the way you portray it certainly isn't.
Yeah, I think that there's this incredible misconception that people who buy from businesses online are not human beings. And what I mean by that is the way that many companies create content online is for robots, and not necessarily Google robots, but like they write in a way, they talk in a way, it's 3 bullet points to this, and then a 3-sentence paragraph, 3-sentence paragraph, 3 bullets, and it's like, that is not how a human being engages in any way. And whether you're going, and this is especially the case in B2B, right? Like B2B companies are the worst. They assume that the whole company, all 10,000 people that work for that company are making the decision to buy from you, and not a human being who has a kid that threw up on them when they were burping them in the morning, and then they got stuck in traffic, and then their boss yelled at them, and they spilled coffee on themselves, and now they're reading your blog post, and it's like at that point, the last thing they want to do is read your drolling on blog post, right? So I really like this idea of a conversational format. What are some other like how do you make the post, format the post in a conversational way? Because I have my own thoughts, and I'm very interested in yours. Like, what are some features that add the conversational tone to a post?
Well, I think some of it has to do with your language, some of it has to do with the physical formatting. So one of the things that Ralph and I do is that we'll sometimes talk out loud to each other. We'll have a conversation about whatever the marketing topic of the day is and record it. And then we have a reference point to go back and say, oh yeah, that was good. That was a good thing. We want to put that on our blog. The nice thing about that is that you also have a reference point for the way you said it in an actual conversation. So you can use that language, and you don't have to take an idea and kind of try and stuff it into proper grammar. So that's one way that you can kind of break out of that and make it be more conversational, which is just have a conversation, even if it's with your mom or dad. And then if you record that and you go back and listen to it, you'll kind of get a sense of how you speak and what phrases you use, and you can almost transcribe that, clean it up a little bit, and now you have an actual conversation. The other thing comes in with formatting, because when we were in school and we were all taught that good grammar and good spelling, you were taught exactly when to make a paragraph break and when not to make a paragraph break. And when you read a book, you could go on for pages and pages and pages with one paragraph. You just can't do that online. And you don't do that in a conversation. You kind of have breaks back and forth. So for formatting purposes, you have to break that up a lot more than you might even think is reasonable. 1-sentence paragraphs, 1-word paragraphs, little uses of like italics and bold if you're going to shout something. I'm not a fan of caps, but just little formatting things stuck in there that can make it a lot more friendly as opposed to, like I said, reading a term paper.
Yeah. I think another big part of it, too, is getting people through the page, right? Like, normally our calls to action are after the post. So whether your call to action is get a free trial of our service, or call us for a consultation, or subscribe to our email list, that usually comes after the article. So I 100% agree with all your formatting things. I do all those things on my posts. I've been doing them for a long time, and I actually caught a lot of heat inside the insurance industry for them when I first started doing this. People were like, that's not how you properly format a post. Like, you can't write that way. Like, but what it did was it got consumers to go from the top of the post to the bottom of the post very fast, right? A one-sentence paragraph moves somebody's eyes 3 inches down the screen, and that's a lot. That's really important. Another thing I use, I use the all caps. I don't use them as much anymore because I agree with you, they are kind of annoying. Is ... right? Like, there's so few grammatically correct uses of the ... Yet I probably have right 2 or 3 of them, and like when your mind is just trailing off, it's like ... and they should, So it's little things like that. It's such a great point. So another thing that we were talking a little bit about in the green room, and I want to bring back for everyone who's listening or watching now, is the idea of talking to the wrong audience. So we know we're not supposed to write for management. We know we're supposed to write for consumers. But are there ways? Are there ways to kind of test, like, are we actually attracting the type of people that we want other than the cash register ringing? Like, are there anything corporations can do? Like, do comments come into play here? Subscriptions, social media shares? Like, are there any indicators that we can use to know, okay, we are kind of capturing the right people?
That's a good question.
I don't have the answer
like
for it.
Throwing me under the bus. Honestly, the cash register ringing is a big one. And I'll use an example from my experience to kind of illustrate the point that I want to make. But when we started blogging originally, it was 2010, I believe, we started blogging with the intent that we were going to talk to our customers. But for various reasons, that didn't work out, because for the most part, our customers hired us. They were done. They didn't need to read our blog posts. Then we relaunched our blog a couple years later, 2012, as Web.Search.Social, and we thought, okay, we know exactly who we're talking to now. We're gonna talk to our prospects. We're gonna tell them what we need to know. 2 years later, well, a year and a half later or so, no leads, nothing happened. What are we doing wrong? We have great information. We have great comments. So to your point, we have tons of subscriptions. To your point, why aren't we getting any leads? So we sat down and we thought, what are we writing? We're not writing crap. We know that. So what's going on? And what we discovered personally is that we were targeting a great audience. They just weren't the people who were going to hire us. So a lot of our early posts had to do with, how to set up your Facebook page, what you want to do if you're managing your Twitter, how to A/B split test an email campaign. That's awesome if you're a DIYer. But DIYers, by nature of being DIY, aren't going to hire us. So the fact that we were producing great content for DIYers was not relevant to us. So we actually switched gears again, and we said, what does that person who's going to hire us need to know? And that's when we kind of backfilled from there. They want to know how much this stuff is going to cost. They want to know what's going to happen when this fails miserably. They want to know, why should I hire you? Amongst, about a billion other things. And that's when we started getting the leads, and we started realizing that we were targeting the right people. So I think that comments don't matter. We get almost no comments on our blog. Once in a while, we get a comment from someone like you, Dino Dogan, somebody in our space who has read what we wrote and it resonated with them. But the comments don't pay the mortgage. So I don't care if we never get another comment again, as long as that phone keeps ringing. Subscriptions matter, but only insofar as they are returning. So you may have 1,000 email subscribers, but not a single one of them ever responds to you, ever talks to you, ever hires you. Not so useful to have 1,000 email subscribers at that point. If you have 500 email subscribers and you're getting business, that's a whole lot better than having a big subscriber list. So I think that there's some misnomer that numbers matter, and we all like to see big numbers. I want 10,000 Facebook fans too, and I want 10,000 email subscribers. But the numbers are not important. What's important is that the number that you do have, whether it's 1 or 10 or 10,000, that they are responding to you. And the only way to know that is if the cash register is ringing. So that's my feeling on the matter. And if the cash register is not ringing, you just have to stop. You have to stop and do what we did and go, that's not friggin' working. Why are we putting out this content and not getting leads? And you really have to do a self-examination.
See, this is why I asked these questions. That was the value right there. That was an amazing answer. I 100% agree with you. And
There's too much agreeing going on here. We have to fight about
that's
something
okay.
at some point.
That's okay. I'll start to disagree with something with you soon.
Okay.
I'm sure. I have all the meat and potatoes is coming up on my little sheet here. So for everyone tracking at home, I have my sheet of death that I keep. But you know, because this is something that comes up too in my own business, right? Like, so I have done this. I for a long time wrote. Because I wanted people to know who I was, right? For lack of a better term, I'm not ashamed to know that. I wasn't selling anything yet. I still had a full-time job. This writing, blogging thing was more of a hobby, and all I really cared about was brand awareness. But then when I started to transition over to now want to start selling services or sell a product, blah, 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 the traction wasn't the same. And it just 100% speaks to your point. It really does come down to the register. Now, I would say that there are some indicators in things like comments and stuff that you can take, but I 100% agree that if you're not cashing checks, then you're doing something wrong, right? Because we're meant to be businesses, unless you're getting paid to be famous, and that would be different.
Right.
Before we move on, we do have a quick question, and Nazim asks, written versus video. And, you know, so where does video come into play into corporate blogs? Is it something they should be focusing on? You know, what role is video playing in today's kind of corporate blog environment?
I don't think video should replace a written blog. I think it can supplement it. I think it can enhance it. I think you can do a video and then write a blog post about it. But there's nothing more aggravating to me than having to sit through a 10-minute video, listening to a talking head, basically telling me what I could have read in 2 minutes on my own if they had written it out. So if the question is, should you kind of record your video, record your blog as opposed to writing your blog, always go for the writing. First of all, you've got the search engine value and the keyword value and everything right there. Second of all, you've got you're giving people the ability to process it on their own time. So if there's a paragraph and they want to copy and paste that out, stick it in a Word document for later. Or if they get interrupted and they only read halfway and then they need to come back in 10 minutes. It's a whole lot easier to do that on a written blog than on a video blog. So video has a place in marketing, of course, but I would say not to do one of those, I'm going to do a video instead of a blog post kind of thing. So if you're going to use video, use it as part of your blog post, write something around it, or transcribe it. So now somebody who is more visual can listen to it or rather auditory can listen to it if they want to, or they can read it if they want to. I just think it's a lot more user friendly to have the written post and let people read it at their pace, let them process it at their pace, let them mash it up and do whatever they want with it and take out whatever information they need from it, rather than, you know, having them sit there and kind of like, straight for 10 minutes listening to you talk.
Yeah. I'm with you there. I mean, I'm all in on video as far as I think it's an incredibly powerful tool, but there are some caveats to that, and that's the transcription. And this was a mistake that I made at the beginning of some like videos that I did. I wasn't transcribing them, and since I started transcribing them, they've all gotten much more traffic. One, because you are actually feeding Google something that it can read and index and send people to, but at the same point, or at the same time, people can come to that post and get just as much value out of it because the transcription is right below the video itself. So the readers get to read, the video people get to watch. Right. And the other point is, too, not everything needs to be turned into video or makes for good video, right? And that's another thing that I've definitely made that mistake as well. You know, like you said, just taking a blog post and turning it into a video isn't good unless there's a reason why you did it as a video, right? And same with audio content. Like, just read, like I know people started reading their blog posts into SoundCloud and turning them into sounds, and that's great, unless it's an awfully boring topic and it just has no purpose being an audio format, and then it's just a waste of your time and the people who you're trying to get them to listen to time.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think you can have multiple ways of presenting it. I think you should always have a written version, always. You know, if you want to transfer, if you want to turn it into a video, embed that in your blog post. If you want to turn it into audio so someone can do like ebook fashion and run on the treadmill and listen to your blog, do that too. But I think always having it in a written format is important. And also, when we do write, there's a lot of rules and opinions about how to format things, and you always put in headers because you want people to be able to scan easily. You want that for a reason, because when you do a video, and let's say it's 3, 4, 5 minutes long, you're assuming that someone wants to sit there for 5 minutes and listen to everything you say. And it's real hard to skip ahead in a video without losing continuity. So if you have a blog post that's written, someone can easily see, bullet point 1, that's not relevant to me. Bullet point 2, not relevant. They can skip right down to the third one, or whatever one is relevant, get the most important thing to them, and that's really what you want. You don't necessarily need them hearing or reading every single word. That's just you. You want to be the center of attention. You just want them getting to the point that's important to them.
Yeah, unless you're getting the Scott treatment and he's pulling out specific moments in your video, which then people can jump to and just get what they need. So timestamps do work. They're just an incredible amount of work. So let's talk about something that's kind of near and dear to my heart. And I shouldn't say near and dear. That sounds ridiculous. Just something I've been thinking about lately in terms of business and corporate blogging, and that's the idea of creating content, blogging on third-party sites. In particular, creating original content, say on like LinkedIn Publisher or on Google+, which would be really the only two that I could possibly be okay with someone doing that on. Is there a time when that makes sense for a company, or is your recommendation everybody start on the blog and then you can repurpose to those places?
I'm a big fan of your blog and your website being your home base. There's no saying that LinkedIn publishing platform is going to be there tomorrow. There's no saying that Google Plus is going to be there tomorrow. There's no saying that they're not going to change their rules and decide, you know what, this is not appropriate for our platform anymore. That content, once you put it on another platform, is really no longer yours. It is subject to the whims of whatever platform you put it on. So I think that there's a place for using, let's just call them excerpts or spins, repurposed content on other sites, but I really think that if you're producing good content, you should focus on keeping it on your site.
So here's my thought on that, because in principle I agree with you, but I also think, and this is where we're going to start our opinions are going to start to diverge a little bit here. You're
Finally.
looking for a little bit of we're not just kind of parroting each other. So the idea that I've started to dive into here is that your blog should really be for resources, right? You're not writing 350-word things, 550-word articles on your site. Maybe you are. Some people do, but they don't get as much traction, and maybe it's not the best use of your time on your site in particular. But that same 550-word thought, short blast thought with a nice image, could make a really incredible LinkedIn Publisher article. So now it's original content. It's not on your site, but it does have value, it does make a point, and you can use it to both build your brand equity inside of a platform like LinkedIn. It can help reinforce the connections you already have, and you can use it as traffic generation source out of LinkedIn to your site to maybe a larger article that smaller, more thought, just like one thought could lead into a larger resource that you have on your actual page. So in that case, though, you probably could have turned that 550-word article into a post on your blog by leveraging it in another space, a platform that has an audience, maybe some of which are different and has its own way of spreading. You can actually attract more traffic and more brand awareness by using these platforms, kind of playing their game a little bit.
Yes, if you can. I'm a big fan of trying whatever you can try. So I would not dismiss it out of the box. Yes, I think your website should be your home base, and if you are writing elsewhere, then your goal should be to get people back to your home base. So obviously, it's great if they read your article on LinkedIn, but if they aren't visiting your site to find out what you do, or even visiting your LinkedIn profile to find out what you do and contacting you, then you're kind of talking into the ether. But yeah, so I would say try it. see what happens. And if you're finding that creating content on LinkedIn is pulling people either back to your site or back to your LinkedIn profile, and they're calling you or getting in touch with you because they want to do business with you, that's a win. So I wouldn't dismiss it. I would just say just monitor it, because a lot of times what people do is kind of get into a mindset about what they're supposed to do. Oh, I'm supposed to be guest posting because that'll build my visibility. I'm supposed to be publishing on different platforms because that'll increase my branding. Branding still doesn't pay the mortgage. So if you test it out and you're getting results, go with it. If you test it out and all you're doing is creating content for other people for free, then don't. But you also made another point, which I think ties it together, which is that just because you publish something on another platform doesn't mean you can't expand on it or tangent from it or also create a complementary piece on your own site. So now you can kind of tie those two things together, where that you may have original content that doesn't live on your site, but it does bring people back to something related on your site.
Yeah, I firmly believe in the 7 to 11 touches that someone has to have with your brand before they're willing to engage in the buying process with you, right? I believe in that as strongly as you can believe in any business principle. And this idea of creating original content on third-party sites you don't own, with the idea that if I'm on LinkedIn, so here's my whole thought process behind this. If I'm on my LinkedIn app on my phone, right, and I'm scrolling through and I'm reading the articles and I see something from you guys, and I click a button and then my LinkedIn app goes down and then my Safari app comes up, or and then I'm seeing the thing scrolling, and it has nothing to do with your site. It's just technology and cell phones and connections, and now it's a minute and a half to get the article that I want to read. I'm probably just gonna go done. I'm not going to read it. Maybe I'll email it to myself or something so that I can come back and read it later, but I'm not going to get there. But because of the nature of some of these platforms, and this is specific to mobile users, and this is why my brain is going to this place, and I'm hoping that you're going to poke holes in it, and that's why I'm sharing this, is that inside a LinkedIn publisher, and it's not even up yet, I'm pointing at my phone. Inside a LinkedIn publisher, that connection is like this, right? So you post that same article to the Web.Search.Social LinkedIn thing, publisher thing, and I see it come through, and I click it. The app, bang, zips it up, and I almost feel like they do it. They make it slow on purpose so that you won't click out of the app, but which I guess is possible. But then it zips right up, and now I have that same content in front of me, and I didn't have to leave the native platform on which I saw your brand. And I feel like more and more, and this is where this idea is coming from, more and more people are, they don't want to leave the place that they're consuming the content in. So if we're saying you have to come back to my blog to get my content, are you losing people, / are you even being fair to potential customers because they don't really want to come back to your blog? They want to have it in the place that they enjoy doing it the most. Where are the holes in that argument?
I think that, well, I don't think I wasn't referring to forcing people back to your site to read the full content, so let me clarify that and then answer your question. So you can publish full content on a third-party platform that does not require someone to come back to your site to finish reading that content. What I was really referring to was, now that you've got this original content and it's somewhere else, don't let it just float out there by itself. Somewhere in there, link to a relevant article on your site. Put a call to action, check out my services, link to your profile, but do something so that if someone does, you know who we are. If you see an article from us, you're going to go, oh, that's them. Not everybody does. I don't know why they don't know us, but they don't. So someone's seeing us for the first time on LinkedIn. They see us and they go, oh, this is interesting, good content. Done reading, click next. I just left that, that person in limbo, but if they really found what I wrote compelling, they might be interested to read more, in which case I can bring them back to my site. Or they might want to subscribe, in which case I can point them to my forum. Or they may want to know about a service that is related to whatever that post is. So that's what I meant by bringing people back. I didn't mean that we wanted to interrupt the experience. So yes.
That makes sense to me. That makes sense. And I didn't clarify my point either of how you kind of. I guess my whole theory is based on the idea of kind of interweaving these things, right? So like, maybe your YouTube video just lives on YouTube, but you're linking to it from your page, and it's linking back to this other page, and now all these conversations are kind of connecting to each other, even though they're not all on your site. So, okay, so I guess.
Well, that's actually exactly it, because what you really want to do is you want an entire web of your own. You want all your content linking, cross-linking, and interlinking. You don't ever want to have a piece of content anywhere that's just floating on its own. That's got to be part of your little ecosystem.
That actually brings up a good question that we had come up. Another one from Nazim, and he asks, regarding lead generation on corporate sites, is email newsletter capture the best way to get a lead? Or, I'm assuming, are there other his question is, are there other things that corporations can do as far as kind of lead gen?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about you can always have a call to action on your blog, which you should anyway, and saying something as simple as, find out more about this service can compel somebody to do that. But I would say that, your email list is important because you have the opportunity to, what you were saying earlier, which is touch that person more than once. So chances are somebody coming to your blog and reading something for the first time, no matter how stellar it is, they're probably not going to click to call you. Second, third, fourth, 11th time, they probably will. But you won't have that opportunity the same way if you don't get them on the list in the first place. So I think that getting them on your email list is important. We actually used to have an RSS feed on our site, and then we actually killed it. It's still there if you look for it, but we took it off. We just took it off publicly because that doesn't really buy us anything. Letting people read our content and then just go away, not as effective as having them on our site, where then we can ask them to sign up and have all that stuff right there for them. So I think that if that, to answer the question, I think the email list is the most important thing. I think that the calls to action are important, but again, if you don't have the opportunity to reach out to that person more than once, you're kind of losing that. But you can also have people connect with you elsewhere. People are not so freely giving with their emails first time out, so have them connect with you on LinkedIn, have them connect with you on Google+, Facebook. Better to have them in your circle of influence, wherever that may be, so that eventually, whether they're on your list or not, they may decide to hire you. But keep them in your ecosystem as much as possible. Email list ideal. Social connections is always a great option otherwise. And, kind of generic calls to action is probably the weakest, but certainly it should be there.
Yeah. I agree with that completely. Cheeky comment from Dustin. He said that branding does pay the mortgage if you're in the business of branding. Yes, Dustin. That makes complete sense. So we beat this topic up pretty good. Is there anything we kind of missed here? Is there any glaring thing about it? Like, is there anything in this conversation we didn't touch on that corporate blogs should deal with? And we've hit the gamut, so the answer may be no. We beat it up pretty good. I did say something. The thing that bothers me the most about corporate blogs is the size of the font that they use. I mean, it's unbelievable. I don't get why companies have not gotten the memo that if your font is 11, no one is going to read it. It's just way too small. Like, I have pretty good eyes, and 11 font is like back button. So is there anything else that you can think of that we haven't hit here? Because we have a very important topic that I want to get to next.
No, I mean, I think we beat it up pretty good. If I could just leave with one thing that I think is the most important, which I know we kind of touched on, but you should never sit down to write a blog post and ask yourself, what should I write about? If you're wondering what to write about, you're starting in the wrong place. Always ask yourself, what do my prospects need to hear from me? And the minute we started doing that is the minute we just started generating leads almost every day. Because what I want to write about is completely irrelevant. It's what the person who is thinking of hiring me needs to hear or wants to hear. That's the important part. So instead of asking yourself, what should I write about, ask yourself, what does that prospect need to hear? And that's always, for me, the best place to start.
Yeah, somebody timestamped that quote. That was fantastic. I love that. What do my prospects need to hear? Awesome. So let's move on to a topic that's near and dear to my own heart. Web.Search.Social is starting a podcast. Awesome.
We are.
When is it coming out?
Mid-September. So I believe we have the 15th scheduled as our first release date.
Yeah, any Is it just like, what's the format going to be? Is it going to be interview style? You and Ralph? You can have anybody else? Like, what's the format?
Well, it's always going to be Ralph and I, because we're basically the faces of our business.
Yep.
And we're planning on alternating. We are never doing an interview. Interviews are boring. No one wants to hear them. We used to do blog post interviews, and no one wanted to read them either. We're going to have conversations, kind of like we're having. I wouldn't call this an interview so much as a conversation, and these are the best times. So we want to have conversations with people. We don't want to recirculate the usual suspects, though. We actually want to have business owners on, our clients, our peers' clients, whoever is in the business space, to talk about marketing. And what we want to talk about is challenging the shoulds and the conventional thinking and all that stuff that people think, well, I should be on Facebook, or I need to split test my subject, in my email, or whatever someone thinks they should be doing. We want to be like the people to say, why? Why should you be doing that? And maybe there's a good reason, but we don't want to take anything at face value. So our goal is to really kind of be that foil.
I like that. There's so many interesting avenues that you can take with a podcast. What are your thoughts on businesses starting podcasts in particular, not just kind of, mostly podcasts started by marketers or and that kind of stuff. Where do you see like a corporate podcast coming in? Do you see that as something that that you would even recommend to one of your clients?
Yeah, I think that's a great opportunity to break into a space that so few people are doing. And exactly what you said, which is that a lot of marketers have podcasts, which is nice for marketers, but a business speaking directly to their audience, and even perhaps with their audience, is a perfect place to be. And that's to some extent why we want to have clients and business owners on, because those are the people who matter. And if I can get a prospect, let's say, to come on my podcast, that is just a win all around. So they get to pick my brain basically for an hour, ask questions, get answers to what they need to know, and we get the opportunity to show them that we know what we're talking about, and then we mutually get the opportunity to kind of reach each other's audiences. So we know we're going to promote the heck out of our podcast, and we know that a business owner who is invited onto a podcast to have that opportunity is going to tell his audience about that podcast. So now we've expanded that web a little bit. So yeah, I would recommend that definitely. I mean, that's an opportunity for you to really not only do something that is uncommon, but to connect with people on a level that you probably can't, or you definitely can't, in a blog post or an email.
So your show is going to be weekly, bi-weekly, monthly? How often?
Weekly.
Weekly. Very cool. Very, very cool. I wish you guys.
You're going to be a guest, right? I'm throwing down the gauntlet right now.
You got me. I'm hooked. Oh, God, we're doing one of those. And I see that your husband is showing people where they can sign up and get more information in the event notes. I will have that link and everything in the show notes for this episode as well. I highly recommend. I haven't heard a single episode, but obviously I've had both Ralph and Carol Lynn on the show, so I recommend their work. Extremely interesting, extremely intelligent, and I have to say, and I don't throw this word out too often, but you guys are thought leaders in this industry, and the reason I say that is because of things like, I've never had a guest come on the show before and say that they debated with their business partner using the word, a-hole in a post title before, right? And like, that is something that not a lot of people think about. They don't go deep on these topics, and you guys do, and I really appreciate that about your work. You can tell that even when you push the envelope on things, there's thought behind it. It's not just like, I'm just going to throw this out there and then forget about it. You're testing it. You're thinking about it. And I really appreciate the things that you do. So I highly recommend everybody who's watching, everyone who's listening in the future, check out Web.Search.Social.com. Connect with Ralph and Carol Lynn. These are people that you just want to have on your radar, and then when you need their services, obviously they are a go-to. As we close up here, I'm going to throw one more comment out, and I just have to answer with a simple yes. For those listening at home, the question was from Ralph, do you see now why I married her? So
well, that and the pancakes, so
Oh, you make good pancakes too? Jesus. The perfect woman. Any last closing thoughts? Where can people connect with you besides Web.Search.Social?
You can pretty much find me anywhere online at Carol Lynn Rivera. It's CarolLynn Rivera. So Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, insert another social network. So yeah, Web.Search.Social, and also any social network with my full name.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on the show. For everyone who showed up today, great comments, great questions. Thank you. Have a great day, and we are